Hey, welcome to another video. I'm Unjacked, and what I'm showing you here is a Wave 30 Simulacrum real quick before we get into the build and go over everything. This was a really fun build to try. I've never done anything like this before. You can see all the monsters just coming right at me, and I'm taking them no issue whatsoever. I've done about 30, 40, maybe 50 simulacrums at this point. I'm not really sure, but it's a lot of simulacrums. And I would say overall, the loot is there. The loot is there through cluster jewels and rolling those and dropping some really cool stuff. Maybe some really good voices. I have yet to drop anything better than a 7 myself, but I'm sure given a couple hundred simulacrums, it would average out to be pretty decent. The bossing on this is pretty great. I've never had an issue with Kosis or Omni in this, and the monsters are just fine. Honestly, overall, I would recommend this. Maybe not for me in the future, at least with these skills. I'm looking for something that can really clear screens and, see how it's done. And here you can see the loot that we drop on Wave 30. It's okay, but let's look at the build.
So be it. Keep your precious sanity, my...
Okay, we're going to jump through the gear and just walk through it. I'm going to go a little bit in depth here. A lot of changes have taken place since I did the first and second Simulacrum farming videos. So bear with me. This is a standalone video. So if you're wondering if you need to go watch anything else, you do not. This video alone will help you with this build and whatever you want to know from it. Okay. And if I don't cover anything, just please put it in the comments. I will try to come back around and address anything. If I can't, I'll let you know that I can't either. Anyway, let's go. This is the wand that I picked when I first made the build. I made no changes. It has a garbage tree on it. I didn't even bother to fill it out. Doesn't matter. The only thing that really mattered to me was get some spell damage here. So I got the fractured one. And then I got +1 to all spell skill gems. I rolled this myself and just threw trigger on it. It was good enough. You can go get a mirror tiered wand if you want. You can get +1 to all fizz skill gems as well. That's a good upgrade here. You can get more fire damage. You can get increased fire damage, increased spell damage. You just want more damage and as many levels to your skill gems as you possibly can, plus a trigger, right? Because we're going to be triggering the skills that we'll go over here in a second. Jumping over to the helmet, we have Viridi's Veil. This is really important for my build. If you're going to copy my build, you need the Unearth Spawns Corpse with +5 level enchant. You can't use any other enchant. You need this. I'm using this plus a magic ring. So if you look at the last 3 lines, we're using the first 2. So I have a magic ring equipped and it's in the right slot. So I'm hexproof. I can move it into the left slot if I wanted no extra damage from crits. So I'm on the fence whether I could swap them and see how that feels. I actually have not done that yet. Okay, jumping into the amulet. So this is where I did a big upgrade. I'm not going to lie. You can't even do this build without this. This is an almost perfect one. I'm one off on the reservation. You have to have 30% quality of all skill gems. Anything less than that, and it will feel terrible. Your corpse won't be exploding all the time. I wanted to get 100% corpse explosion. So 30% is a minus. If you're going to go into this build, you need to spend, you have to have a budget for this. There's no doubt about it. I'm also anointing charisma to this, and I'm putting attribute modifiers. So I'm qualitying up. You don't have to, it just adds +3 to all attributes. It is worth it. There's no other catalyst that will give you increased anything other than that. So that's why I went with it. We are going to jump right to the armor piece here. I went with the best, incandescent heart that I possibly could get. This is really important because of the 5th line here. 25% of elemental damage from hits is taken as chaos damage. And since we're CI, that's essentially, we just take 25% less, just right off the top. And we also get 20% of our elemental damage done as extra chaos damage to the enemy. So this is going to give us big damage. This is going to give us big reduced damage. I just don't know how you do this build without this chest piece. So it is an absolute must. Okay, jumping into the shield. This is probably where it gets pretty crazy. All right, I'm going to be honest here. This is mandatory. You have to have an Aegis because we're stacking armor and it's part of our recovery. And on this build, recovery is literally everything. So I grabbed this because of the tree. The tree is ridiculous. On an Aegis, I got 20% increased fire damage, followed with +3 maximum cold res. The only way this gets better is if that's +4. So this essentially with melding is a +8 to maximum cold res just with the tree. These now start between 40 and 60 divines at this point. So I don't even know at this point if I would do this build. I mean, the tree's not necessary. You can get the +3 elsewhere, right? You can do something with that. Again, this is part of our recovery strategy, and if you're doing this particular build, you need as much recovery as possible. All right, jumping into the rings real quick. This ring I just went ahead and bought. I made sure I had an open prefix. You need to have non-channeling skills have -7 to total mana cost. We're trying to make this as cheap and as free as possible, so make sure you have that on both rings. This ring here I rolled, and it took me 1400 alterations to get cursed enemies with elemental weakness on hit, and it came with a prefix that I had to annul off, and I got really lucky that it annulled off the prefix and not the elemental weakness. So keep that in mind. This could be a really difficult ring to hit, but you need this, and you need it just like this. Now for the blights, I do blight, you may not, so I use Chilling Towers Freeze on one and Meteor Towers on the other. So that's an optional thing, of course. The gloves, I'm looking for some really decent energy shield and some reses. That's basically it. I'm trying to make up the res issue from melding. Again, just energy shield and reses, and you're good to go. For Exarch and Eater, I'm just doing Unnerve and exposure on hit, so that's kind of nice. On the boots, for those implicits, I'm doing gain fizz damage as extra chaos damage and a little bit of increased effect on my bone offering. So for the boots, I decided to craft my own boots, and I wanted big energy shield, but I wanted a nice fracture on it too, so I wouldn't have to, like, you know, beg so hard for a really good energy shield roll. So I went with increased energy shield recharge rate, and I just rolled the rest. Super easy. We don't care about life. We only care about energy shield. So that +5 maximum life roll, it's not a big deal. Our belt, I also crafted it myself. Make sure it's a Crusader base, so we get that big energy shield increase. I went with bigger defense modifiers. I can re-roll this for sure. I just landed on a really good set of mods with energy shield and flash charges gained and increased effects. So I can re-roll this belt. I get a second one, try to roll it again, and that'll get me to the party. You know, so that's basically all the gear right there. I just have some offhands just to level up gems, and that's basically it. So gear wise, that should do the trick. Next, we're gonna go and just talk about the gems real quick, and I'll try to do clockwise to do that. So you can pause the video at any time and take a look at anything you really need. So I'm using Phantasmal Purifying Flame. It's just going to increase the effect of Consecrated Ground, and when we get to Flasks, we'll see that we have a Bottle of Faith that gives me Consecrated Ground. So that's just great. That's a nice alternative quality gem. And then we have Combustion tied to that, and then we have Divergent Bone Offering. That's going to give us block. We need block. Every time we block, we recover energy shield, and it's just beautiful. And of course, you know, with Aegis, we're recovering energy shield equal to 2% of armor when you block. So we're increasing armor, we're increasing our block, and it goes from there. All right, in the helm, you need this exact setup. It's greater volley support with Phantasmal Unearth, with Enhance, with Empower. I can get a level 4 Empower, I can get a level 4 Enhance, I could get a 2120 greater volley. So these are all areas that you can upgrade and min-max this build, but you cannot do this build without Phantasmal Unearth and Phantasmal Cremation. It is so important to make sure that you have those before you do anything else. So you get those two gems, and then you get your amulet, and then you can start thinking about this build. Okay, so in the chest piece, we have Phantasmal Cremation. Again, you can't do this build without it. You have to have that. Tied with Hypothermia, tied with Anomalous, Greater Multiple. projectiles, and that's just going to give you increased speed and reduced mana costs, which is super important because we're shooting these skills constantly. All right, then we have Awakened Fire Pen. You can get level 6 here. You can definitely bring up the damage a little bit more, so another min-max opportunity. Divergent Inspiration. This is reduced mana cost. Again, we're trying to reduce the mana that we use as much as we can. And then finally, Awaken Elemental Focus. You can get level 6 here as well. For the rings, we're using Defiance Banner and we're using Flame Dash. It's simple. You don't even maybe need Flame Dash. For me, it feels good. This is not a fast character, so I don't run a lot. I just kind of Flame Dash in between points when I'm doing the Simulacrums to try to keep the enemies, generating. So you can take this or you can use something else, or you can use a different ring as long as it has your elemental weakness on it. You don't need an unset ring if you're not going to use like Flame Dash. Here in the shield we have cast when damage taken, level 1, tied with Molten Shell and increased duration. Molten Shell gives us a buff to our armor, and it absorbs damage. This is a must. You need this if you're armor stacking, if you're using Divine Shield. If you're trying to do this, you just need this setup. Okay, last two, we have the gloves. We're using Divergent Tempest Shield. This is really important for our block. This is how we get our max block. So since our amulet is pushing all our quality, you want all these alternate quality gems. Okay, and then so that's tied with Anomalous Discipline. That's going to give us increased damage when we're on full energy shield, which we basically always are. That has regular determination in it with Enlighten. And again, you could do a level 4 Enlighten and get back some of your mana and maybe do a little something else. And then finally, the boots, we have Purity of Ice. This is how we get our high resistances. We're at 89%. I'll show you all that in just a second. We have an Enlighten. Again, another opportunity for level 4. We have Arctic Armor. You can try to do an alternate one, but I kind of want duration, so I left it at that. And then Divergent Purity of Elements. That is going to give you a little elemental res pen. Okay, and just a quick little peek over here. So at the resistances, we're at 89%. You can push that a little bit further. You can get a better tree with +4 cold res. You could get aura effectiveness and push your Purity of Ice. So those are opportunities for you to get that done. Overall, the survivability feels great, and the Simulacrums feel pretty darn good as well. Okay, let's go through the Flasks real quick. First of all, the Dying Sun. We want as many projectiles as we can. That puts out more Unearth, and this gives us area of effect, so we're doing damage at a larger area. So definitely get this, plus 20% less damage taken for fire when you have it up. And then Bottle Faith. This is to get Consecrated Ground. This is just going to help us really kill those enemies a lot faster. And then we have a Basalt Flask. We're going to taunt those enemies. We're going to always have gain 3 charges when you're hit by an enemy, because we get hit all the time. This is important. So make sure you have that. We're going to craft regen 3% of life on it, and then that flask is done. You could also get this up to 28% if you want to do some work there. And then we have a Silver Flask. This is going to be our armor, so increased armor, and again, gain 3 charges when you're hit. And then finally, we're doing a Rumi's Concoction so we can get our block up. And they're all at 20%, and I put them all at use when full. It just constantly keeps them going, so I like that. Okay, let's jump right into the passive tree itself. I will go through jewels next. Just real quick, where this is a Divine Shield build, so we're getting this, we're stacking our armor, we're getting our elemental damage here, stacking armor, we're getting some mana res here, and over here. We're anointing charisma down here for a little bit extra. We got 3 different cluster jewels, plus we're getting our energy shield increases here, and there. We do have to take a little bit of dex and strength. We could get these 2 points back by recrafting gear. I don't want to, so I'm just going to accept this loss because I can do wave 30 pretty much deathless always at this point, so it's not even a big issue for me. I do want to talk real quick about Forbidden Flesh, Forbidden Flame jewels. All right, so the Forbidden jewels, I'm I'm taking Vile Bastion. Now, I did try this. I did try this with Malediction, and here's the issue. I took out these points here, and I put them elsewhere because I changed out my Vile Bastion, and it's not the move. The move is to have Vile Bastion and get Whispers of Doom. Now, you might be tempted to anoint this or try to get this on your jewels. Don't do it. It's not worth it. This is more damage. It's because you need this curse mastery too, right? Because we're going to try to reduce our crit strikes by curse enemies. Now, I want to point out that you could move these rings and swap these, right? If you swap these, you are willing to give up hexproof. You can take no damage from crit strikes by moving your magic ring into your left slot. So that is one way to get around that. And then you don't care about this curse mastery, and Whispers of Doom is whatever. But for me, I'd rather be hexproof, so I'm not taking extra damage on when I'm doing the simulacrums. And but I could try either way. You could do it too. So if you are desperate to get out of Whispers of Doom, please feel free to swap your rings. Just accept that you can be hexed, and then so that's one way out of it. But for me, Vile Bastion is a good way to do it, so I'm keeping that. In the future, I may reverse that and see how it feels. Okay, now let's talk about jewels real quick. There's 3 cluster jewels, large cluster jewels, and we want Prismatic Heart, Smoking Remains, and Widespread Destruction there. We want the same thing here. And then over on this side is Disorienting Display, Prismatic Heart, and Sadist. And those are 3 you want. We're going to use some small clusters. We're getting Nature's Patience over here. And then I'm doing some mana reservation. You can get item level 84 to get the 8% with 35% increased effect. And then that'll help you get a little bit more mana res if you want to push it. Over here, I got my melding. And then I have my Watcher's Eye. I want to just take a second real quick and talk about the Watcher's Eye. I tried the other one where you get, while affected by clarity, you get a little bit more energy shield. I opted to take that out, and I wanted to see if I could get a little bit more energy shield gain while I'm affected by discipline. This ended up being the game changer. This recovery, because of the amount of monsters in the simulacrum, and we're constantly hitting this right here, you need this. You need that line right there, in my opinion. I'm sure you could do it some other way, but for me, this is when I went from dying once every like 5 or 6 simulacrums to not dying. This is literally what did it. I also got 10% fizz damage, you know, converted as elemental for Purity of Elements, because why not, right? If you have a better suggestion, I mean, by all means, put it in the comments below, but from my experience, that line was that big of a deal. All right, and then we have the Red Dream. This is giving me extra fire damage as chaos damage, so just damage, right? Just pure damage. And I went with the endurance charge on kill thing because, well, who doesn't like charges, right? And then down here we have another small cluster, 25% for our mana res. And then my other Forbidden Flame. Over here we have the Impossible Escape. Now this is going to allow us to get Unwavering Stance down here, get our +2 max elemental res, and then our +1 to cold res. So this is really important as well. This is +3 res to all. So do not drop this at all. Take it. It's pretty much mandatory if you want to survive. I mean, I guess you could probably survive without, but I don't think I'd want to do that. Okay, and then that's it for the tree. For the jewels, you can take my POB, import it, go check it out more. I have considered things like the Threaded Hope, and then maybe getting some of these nodes around here instead of doing it this way. It would again make me redo my gear for res. Because of the melding, it's really hard to overcome the negative res on a Thread of Hope. But if you can manage it, then that's probably the better move, is take this out, see if you can get another jewel spot, and just use the Thread of Hope to grab things like Arcane Focus. We're going to move on to the Pantheon. So Pantheon wise, I'm taking Soul of Lunaris. Make sure you get all 3 of the additional bosses. Go kill them. They make a big difference. You need to have your Pantheon filled out. And then I also take Tukahama. I'm looking for the Fizz damage reduction. I'm looking for any kind of reduction, and I'm looking for any kind of recovery on this build. Like that regen 2% of life per second while stationary, we don't move. We literally just stand in a spot, we flame dash around. So that's an extra 2% with Zealot's Oath. That's going to be huge for our energy shield bounce back. So hopefully that that gets you there. Now, with all that said, you saw the gameplay. I went through the build. I gave you my POB. I want to give you my overall ending thoughts as I close out this build and I look for maybe another Simulacrum farmer. I might try Detonate Dead or, you know, maybe something else. We'll see. My overall thoughts is I would do this again as a second or third character because you need such an insane amount of gear, right? Just having an Ashes is very expensive. That Aegis Aurora I have is ridiculous. I got it on a really good price, so I lucked out, and you probably won't at this point, but this is a fun farmer. I play a lot of Blight, and I will say this, to do a Simulacrum takes about 30 minutes, 25 to 30 minutes by yourself, because you have to reset, you have to move around. This is a slow build. The issue I have with this is I can't seem to get past level 5 rewards. Every once in a while, I get to a level 6, and that's fine. I do drop raw divines. I drop, you know, the clusters are really, really nice. I will just say that I want something that can clear a little bit better, and maybe I can push this build to do that. But because I can't get past a level 5 reward on pretty much any Simulacrum map, it feels bad because you're leaving 6 and 7 out, which is huge. And if you're farming for loot, you want as much loot as possible. I feel like this build for the cost does not get us there. So I think Detonate Dead might be the better move, or another build to get us there. I do like the fact that it's a really simple and straightforward build that doesn't die in the heat of the moment of a wave 29 or 30. So that's pretty cool. And, you know, overall, should you do this build if you like Simulacrums? I want to finish my thought on Blight and Simulacrum, though. I like Blight. And if you do 5 Ravaged maps, you can juice them out 3 golden oils, 3 silvers, 3 opalescents. You'll get more loot that way. But the experience and the time is exactly the same. 5 Blight maps or 1 Simulacrum is essentially the same. The difference, though, is a Blight map costs at this point, a Blight Ravage map, about 20C each. So you would have to do 100C in maps while I do a 25C Simulacrum. Blight will always be more loot because of the way that it's set up. But I will say that Simulacrum equals that out because of the amount of catalysts, fossils, and the other kind of currencies that it drops. And Blight drops other stuff where the amount of catalysts alone are just crazy. Overall, this was a fun build. I took this from 0 to 99, and I don't know, I'm at 36% to 100, and it's just a matter of time before I hit 100. But I want to get this video out, especially, you know, League is about halfway over now, and there might be people that want to try something like this. I recommend it. I recommend it. If you can lock yourself in for 30 minutes at a time and just, you know, blow up everything in each town, then do it. For me, I kind of just like Blight more because it's just a little bit more entertaining when I'm opening up all the bags, you know, at the end. And, you know, maybe your experience is different. I would like to hear about it in the comments. And if you like this, you want more stuff like this, please subscribe, like it. I'll see you in the next video.